Nathaniel. Who is Nathaniel? Well, before we look at who Nathaniel is, a friend of mine sent me some Facebook notations. If you think nobody cares about you, try missing 2 car payments. Change is inevitable, except from vending machines. No one is listening to you until you make a mistake. 2 wrongs are only the beginning. Monday is an awful way to spend 1/7 of your life. A clear conscience is usually a sign of a real bad memory. Bills travel through the mail at twice the speed that my checks do. If at first you don't succeed, then skydiving is definitely not for you. In this week's passage, we meet a man named Nathaniel who has tasted disappointment again and again and again. But Nathaniel comes face to face with Jesus in a personal encounter. And in the Gospels, Nathaniel is always seen up in a fig tree somewhere. So in pictures of him, he's always very, very short, a very short man. And that is why they say he had to climb up into the fig tree to see Jesus. Nathaniel was known as a cynic. However, we know that the encounter between Christ and Nathaniel was very, very real. We get a vague sense of what Jesus was somehow complimenting Nathaniel at one point. He called Nathaniel quite an Israelite with no guile. He saw Nathaniel a true Israelite in whom there was not one speck of guile. He told Nathaniel that he had seen him sitting under a fig tree. And yes, he did. And he believed in Jesus because Jesus told him that. I saw you. We don't know what he was doing in or under that fig tree, but we do know Jesus at some point sees him. And it moves Nathaniel. Whatever he was doing under that fig tree, God knows. But it moved him to realize that Jesus was, in fact, the King of the universe. We know that Nathaniel was given not a big sales pitch, as we see sometimes. If you've ever watched televangelists, oh my God, you might think they're selling cars. Just put on the Christian networks, and they're running all day long. It's almost, they're trying to sell something. Jesus was not like that with Nathaniel. He didn't give Nathaniel any sales pitches at all. He didn't say, this is why you should follow me, Nathaniel. Let me tell you what I can do for you. Let me explain to you my qualifications. 4 out of 5 experts agree that I am the Messiah. But Jesus greeted Nathaniel unexpectedly by speaking directly to what was in his heart. We don't know what it was. But Jesus immediately got past the cynicism and the smoke screen that was in front of Nathaniel's lives. And that's in front of our lives a lot of time. Jesus didn't play games with him at all, but penetrated into the heart of Nathaniel. And the minute that he heard Jesus' words, Nathaniel responded with a simple faith and simple joy. He told Christ, you are the Son of God, the King of Israel. He quickly switched from his cynicism to an earnest desire to follow Jesus. We have been given talents, each one of us, and abilities that can be used for a purpose. Our daily labors have more significance than the week in and week out grind that we do, looking for a paycheck. There was a man speaking at a conference. His speech had been an absolute failure and a disaster, and many of the people there and his colleagues hated his ideas. The man was tired and he didn't feel like talking at all to anybody after it was over. So he did the one thing that was guaranteed to keep people away. He opened up his Bible. He went back to his room and opened his Bible. He told himself, I'm just going to flip to a certain page, and whatever it is, I'll just read it and see if it is from God. And Psalm 23 popped up, and he looked at it and said, oh my God, Psalm 23? He says, I know this by heart. I memorized it. I taught classes on Psalm 23. What in the world could I learn from Psalm 23? But, stuck in his pride, he still read it. And he began, the Lord is my shepherd. And he stopped. And he started again, the Lord is my shepherd. And he couldn't get through the whole psalm, and a tear rolled down his cheek and splashed on the page. And he felt God's presence there with him in his tiredness and his disappointment of his terrible speech. He read it again. The Lord is my shepherd. And obviously to those who were there, he began to weep uncontrollably, enveloped in God's tenderness. Jesus gets past our walls. He gets past Nathaniel's walls. He gets past our defenses and touches us. We've seen that Nathaniel had an inner yearning to be a follower of Christ and not to be a cynic. Jesus Christ said something to Nathaniel, and we will never know what it is, but he touched his heart. Nathaniel's inner yearning were crushed at an instant, and he became a follower of Christ. If you've never read Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, get a copy of it or get the movie. We have one here. It's worth every bit of the price of the book or the movie if you read it. Jean Valjean, and I had to practice that with Michael this morning because he knows, he says it with Les Mis. Jean Valjean was a hated, hardened convict who had just been released from prison. He can't find a job anywhere. Nobody will hire him, like a lot of convicts today. Everywhere he goes, he's got to show his paperwork to the people who will hire him, and they send him away. They say, this is too much. In desperation, he jumps parole and destroys his papers, a crime that would send him back to prison for life. And while on the run, he finds shelter in the house of a priest, if you remember. And that night, while the priest is asleep, Jean Valjean steals objects worth a lot of money. The silverware and the silver candlesticks. And Jean Valjean is stopped by the police as he's running through the city to get away. And they find him breaking the curfew and stolen goods. When the police take him back to the priest's house, the priest said, as he was awakened by the guards, that he gave Jean those candlesticks and all that stuff as a gift. And the priest sends the police on their way. Then he turns to Jean Valjean and says that he spared him in the name of Jesus. He gives Jean Valjean the candlesticks and the silverware and says, get out of here and go and be an honest man. All day, Jean Valjean wrestled in his turmoil. He's shocked and confounded by what the priest had done. He debates on whether he should kill himself or if he should run away with the money. But somewhere in the midst of the turmoil of anger and confusion, God enters that picture, just like he entered Nathaniel's life. And God breaks Jean Valjean's heart. In response, Jean Valjean dedicates himself to the pursuit of goodness from that point on. And yes, for the rest of the movie and the book, he tries to live a just and a noble life. while the merciless Inspector Javert hunts him. On and on and on. It's almost funny how much he wants to get him. Christ came to Jean Valjean. He comes to you. He comes to me. He comes to Nathaniel by unexpected means always. It's not always how we think he's going to enter our lives. As Jean Valjean was touched, he responded in faith. Thereafter, Christ carried him through the unexpected and successful, harder circumstances he would have in his life. My brothers and my sisters, the gospel here that we read every week, or you can even read at home if you'd like, this gospel is for cynics. Cynics. Not for those who believe. For those who believe, you really don't need the gospel. This is meant for cynics. And like Nathaniel,